All right, today we're diving into the story of one of history's most, well, forceful leaders. I'm talking about Peter the Great. This is the Tsar who basically grabbed medieval Russia by the scruff of its neck and dragged it, kicking and screaming, straight into the modern world.
So, take a look at the man himself. This portrait was actually painted while he was traveling in the West. And just look at that gaze, right? It's so direct, almost piercing. You can tell this wasn't just some king posing for a picture. This was a force of nature, a guy whose ambition was every bit as huge and wild as Russia itself.
And just to give you a sense of his sheer presence, get this. Peter was a literal giant. By all accounts, he stood an incredible 6 feet 8 inches tall. I mean, can you imagine? He was a physical titan who was about to become a titan of history.
And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling today. How on earth did this one, single, larger-than-life man manage to completely remake an entire nation?
Okay, so to really get a handle on what he accomplished, we first have to understand the massive challenge he was up against. I mean, the Russia Peter inherited, it was nothing like the Russia we think of today. It was a completely different world.
So on one side, you've got the reality of old Russia. It was isolated, super traditionalist, and almost totally landlocked. And that's a huge deal, right? It means you're cut off from sea trade, from new ideas. But then you have Peter's vision. He saw a modern, westernized Russia, a scientific powerhouse with a killer navy. The gap between those two things, it wasn't just big, it was a massive chasm. And you know, his early life was anything but stable. Just look at this thing. This is the actual double throne he had to share with his half-brother Ivan V, who wasn't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed. And here's the crazy part. See the back? There's a hole cut into it so their half-sister, Sophia, who was running the show as regent, could literally whisper instructions to them. Talk about a bizarre and shaky start for a guy who'd become an absolute ruler.
So it's probably no surprise that coming from this strange, unstable background, Peter came to a really crucial conclusion. If he wanted to transform Russia, the knowledge he needed just wasn't in Russia. He had to go to the source. He had to go west.
And so in 1697, he does something pretty much unheard of. He sets off on this epic 18-month journey across Europe. And when he met other European royals, like Sophia of Hanover, they were totally blown away by him. She wrote that he had this incredibly lively mind and was super witty. They could tell right away this was not just your average king.
But listen, this was not some royal vacation. He was traveling, incognito. And he turned this whole trip, they called it the Grand Embassy, into his own personal crash course on Western tech. He's in Prussia learning about artillery, then he's in Holland literally rolling up his sleeves and working as a shipbuilder. In England, he's studying everything from how they make money at the Royal Mint to naval strategy. The guy was a student, not a tourist. He was there to learn.
And this really gives you a perfect snapshot of his mission. On the left, that map shows you just how far he traveled. The sheer scale of this trip is amazing. And on the right, well, that's the price. That's what he was after, advanced naval technology, like the ships he saw in Amsterdam. And he wasn't just admiring them, he was learning, piece by piece, how to build them, so he could bring that knowledge all the way back home.
So when Peter finally got back to Russia, he wasn't just carrying souvenirs. He came back with a whole toolkit for a revolution. We're talking shipbuilding techniques, military expertise, and, this is key, he recruited hundreds of foreign specialists to come with him. Engineers, officers, you name it. But the most important thing he brought back? An absolute, unshakable conviction that Russia had to change, and it had to change right now.
Okay, so Peter's back in Russia. He's got the knowledge, he's got his team of foreign experts. And he wasn't there to hold meetings or try to persuade anyone. Nope, he was there to build an empire, and he was going to forge it in the fires of war. First thing on the agenda? Get Russia a coastline.
And even before his big trip to Europe, he'd already had a taste of military success. In 1696, he captured the fortress of Azov from the Ottoman Empire. This was a huge win. It gave Russia its first little foothold in the Black Sea, and it proved to him that, yeah, building a real navy was absolutely the way to go. But one little port on the Black Sea, that was never going to be enough for Peter. His eyes were fixed on the north, on the Baltic Sea. The problem? It was controlled by the super powerful Swedish Empire. But that didn't stop him. It was right there, on a desolate, swampy piece of land that he won through a brutal war, that he imagined his masterpiece. He called it his window to the West, a brand new port city that would connect Russia to Europe, both physically and culturally. And so, in 1703, Saint Petersburg was born. And really, this was an act of pure, brute force and will.
He hired all these European architects to design a city that looked nothing like anything in Russia. And to get it built fast, he did something incredible. He outlawed the construction of stone buildings anywhere else in the entire empire. This forced every single stonemason to pack up and move to his new pet project.
And you can see his vision taking shape right here in this engraving from 1716. This is the plan for the city's summer garden. Just look at the straight lines, the perfect geometric patterns, that total sense of order. This is 100% European design. It's a complete and total rejection of the winding, chaotic streets of old Moscow. This wasn't just a new city, it was a statement, an argument made of stone and water.
But look, Peter's revolution wasn't just about redrawing maps and putting up buildings. He wanted to change the very culture, the soul of the Russian people. And he was more than willing to force that change on them. He started firing off all these decrees, aimed right at the heart of the old-school nobility, the boyars. First, he ordered them to ditch their traditional long robes for Western-style clothes. Then he changed the calendar to match Europe's. And then, the most famous and shocking move of all, he went after their beards. Beards were a huge symbol of tradition and religious faith, and Peter would sometimes personally shave them off right there in his court. Now, if you were a nobleman and you absolutely had to keep your beard, well, you could, but it was going to cost you. Peter slapped a massive annual tax on beards, 100 rubles. He basically turned tradition into a luxury good.
And his revolution didn't stop at beards and clothes. He went after the entire structure of the government. He just completely got rid of the old, inefficient council of nobles. In its place, he built a modern machine. He created a governing senate to oversee everything. He set up collegiums, which were basically the first modern ministries. And maybe most revolutionary of all, he created the table of ranks. This meant that your status and your power now depended on your service to the state, not who your dad was. He was building a meritocracy, a bureaucracy that was loyal to him. So after a reign that lasted nearly 43 years, a reign filled with non-stop war and radical top-down reforms, what was the end result? What did Peter's huge project actually achieve?
Well, the list of what he did is just staggering. He literally created the Russian Empire, which he made official in 1721. He founded the entire Russian Navy from scratch. He modernized the army. He established the Russian Academy of Sciences. He kicked off industrialization and pushed for higher education. By the time he died, Russia wasn't some isolated backwater anymore. It was a major European power that no one could afford to ignore. And you see monuments like this one in the naval base he founded at Kronstadt. And they really are a testament to his legacy. He threw open Russia's doors to the world and completely changed its trajectory, setting it on a path that would define its history for hundreds of years.
But here's the thing. All of these achievements came at a mind-boggling human cost. They were built on the backs of countless serfs and enforced with brutal, ruthless power against anyone who stood in his way. So that leaves us with the big, complicated question. Was Peter the Great a visionary modernizer? Or was he a ruthless tyrant? Or maybe both? The answer, just like the man himself, is anything but simple.